The monarch gave the 3 ministers instructions to harvest fruits from the orchard and bring them to him. Each minister returned with a different haul. While the 3rd minister filled his bag with grass and leaves, the 1st and 2nd ministers harvested ripe fruits with diligence. When the ministers came back, the king called them to his court and told them to bring their fruit sacks right away. They all seemed eager to face the king's disapproval based on the expressions on their faces. The 3 ministers so gave the monarch their bundles of fruits with considerable anxiety. Presenting their bundles of fruits with reverence were the 1st and 2nd ministers. The best and ripest fruits available in the orchard were gathered by each person. The king was delighted with their collection and expressed gratitude for all of their hard work. The king had noted that they had completed their duty with remarkable diligence. The 3rd minister, though, dropped his head in shame. He knew what he had done wrong and how it would affect his relationship with the king. His heart fell to his boots as he gave up his bag of grass and leaves. With a grim expression on his face, the monarch asked the 3rd minister, "What do you intend by doing this? Was my 3rd minister supposed to do this kind of work?" With his head lowered, the 3rd minister was at a loss for words. The 3rd minister's actions and his disdain for the assignment he had been assigned enraged the monarch. In front of the entire court, he chastised the 3rd minister, emphasizing the need of treating obligations with respect. It was clear that the monarch was not happy with the 3rd minister, so he decided to remove him from office and appoint a more capable minister in his place. The monarch, seeing fit to spare no details, appointed the 2nd minister to succeed the 3rd minister. This demonstrated that the king demanded total devotion and responsibility to the given commands. The 3rd minister's costly failure to finish the assignment demonstrated how important it is to treat such responsibilities properly. It also demonstrated that the monarch had the authority to make choices and that anyone who disregarded their labor would suffer the repercussions. After the 3 ministers gave the king their bags of fruit, it was clear that one of them had neglected their duties and acted carelessly. It was clear that the monarch was dissatisfied with the 3rd minister, and he gave him stern criticism. However, the story did not finish there. After seeing the incident closely, the chief of soldiers stood up and requested permission from the king to punish the ministers even more. In order to teach the 3 ministers the value of self-reliance and dedication, the chief of soldiers suggested that they each spend 3 months in isolation, with their bags in their individual cells. Though shocked by the severity of the sentence, the monarch realized the wisdom in the chief of soldiers' suggestion and accepted it. The sentence surprised the 1st and 2nd ministers, who had worked hard and done their part, yet, they concluded it would be better if they accepted it without protest. The 3rd minister, who was in charge of the predicament, expressed regret and accepted the punishment without protest. On that terrible day, as the sun sank, the 3 ministers were escorted, each carrying a bag of fruits, to their separate cells. Once inside, they were struck hard by the gravity of their crime and came to terms with the consequences of their conduct. The 1st and 2nd ministers were thankful that they had not received harsh punishment because they had performed their duties. But 3 months of confinement to their cells gave them ample opportunity to consider what they had done. The leaves and grass the 3rd minister had gathered had withered and lost their luster, so he was sentenced to prison for his carelessness. The grass and leaves eventually turned to dust, and the 3rd minister came to see the seriousness of his careless deeds. The ministers were forced to consider their faults and realize how important it is to carry out their duties during their period of seclusion. They came out of the experience as better people, realizing that they did not want to experience a similar penalty. They gained knowledge about the value of accountability as well as the repercussions of neglecting one's obligations. The chief of soldiers' scheme succeeded, and the 3 ministers came out of their cells as more capable and mature leaders. Although the punishment was severe, it was successful in imparting an important lesson to them. They all committed to their work and made sure they carried out their duties with the highest care after that day. The chief of soldiers added an additional penalty to guarantee the 3 ministers' rehabilitation as they were being escorted to their cells to serve their sentence. He issued an order prohibiting the ministers from having visitors, meaning that during their confinement, they would be left alone to reflect. Furthermore, For a period of 3 months, the chief of soldiers prohibited the ministers from consuming any food or liquids except water. The ministers found it difficult to stay strong and energetic over time as a result of this harsh punishment. The ministers wondered a great deal about what it meant to be a true leader as they faced the fallout from their deeds. They realized the value of honoring their king's commands with courage, honesty, and standing up for justice, values they had abandoned. They realized how harsh the punishment had been and how it had left them feeling weak, defenseless, and unappreciated. Gradually, the clergymen discovered tranquility in their seclusion and initiated the process of relieving themselves by divulging their most profound ideas and emotions. They started exploring their own emotional obstacles, worries, and challenges. They also discovered a fresh sense of inner strength and resilience that they had never known before, in spite of their physical limitations. In the end, the 3 ministers returned to their realm as changed men after being freed. They developed into more modest, kind, and capable leaders. They made use of their incarceration to recognize and address their own shortcomings. The ministers also started speaking out in favor of justice and equity. They made sure that their kingdom's laws were applied equitably and helped individuals who had been harmed by using their newly acquired strength and knowledge. They had to face the harsh reality that, in their capacity as rulers, they owed it to their people to rule and guide with justice. The chief of soldiers examined the 3 ministers' cells when the 3 months came to an end. He discovered that the first minister had taken good care of his fruits while he was imprisoned, and his cell was immaculate. The first minister said that he had meticulously rationed his diet and had eaten very little each day when asked how he kept his fruits in good shape. By doing this, he managed to preserve his fruits and had enough left over to last him through the rest of his incarceration. The chief of soldiers, hearing this, commended the first minister for his creativity and insight. He came to the conclusion that the minister had gained important insight into the value of preparation and forethought and how they could enable him to get through challenging circumstances. After he had been in his cell, the first minister was a wiser man, full of energy and determination to serve the kingdom. He had learned to depend on his own resources and to carefully consider his options as a result of the punishment he had received. He was eager to put these teachings to use in his work because it had made him far more responsible and meticulous. The first minister had come out of the penalty pretty unharmed. He had proven that he could adjust to challenging circumstances and had exhibited remarkable fortitude in the face of hardship. His performance had satisfied the chief of soldiers, who was sure that going forward he would be an even more successful minister than he had been before going into prison. The first minister's successful conclusion served as an example of the strength of will and the capacity for self-reliance. He had gained important knowledge that had improved him as a leader and as a person. The second minister lacked the same degree of vision as the first minister. For the first month of his incarceration, he had eaten all of his nice fruits, leaving him with only the rotten fruits. They proved to be insufficient for the sustenance he had hoped for. The second minister swiftly plunged into poverty in despair, subsisting only on rotten fruits. He battled to stay healthy and experienced persistent hunger pangs. His condition deteriorated throughout the course of the days, to the point that he was dependent on the guards for support and could not get out of bed. The chief of soldiers respected the second minister despite his deteriorating health because of his tenacity and fortitude. He realized that he had gained important insight into the significance of preparation and planning. The second minister was eventually given medical attention by the chief of soldiers, and after his recovery, he was also released from prison. The fate of the second minister was a sobering reminder of what happens when bad planning goes wrong. He had discovered that success required not just good fortune but also a lot of hard work, planning, and preparation. With newfound insight from his experience, the second minister emerged from prison a different person. He vowed to never again make the same error that had brought him to ruin and was resolved to use his newfound knowledge in both his personal and professional life. The most sad of all was what happened to the third minister. He had not been able to bear the starvation and suffering that came with the penalty, unlike the first and second ministers. The third minister had died before the first month of his confinement had even ended, unable to withstand the hunger and suffering. The guards found his dead while on their regular patrols, and his death served as a somber reminder of life's harsh realities. His passing served as a sobering lesson of the value of resiliency and willpower. The third minister paid the ultimate price since he was unable to endure the test of the punishment. The third minister's passing greatly pained the chief of soldiers, but he also understood that the kingdom as a whole would learn from it. He thought it would encourage individuals to put in more effort, make better plans, and cultivate the resilience required to thrive under trying circumstances. The minister's punishment had imparted invaluable life lessons, including the value of resilience and preparation. Each minister's results demonstrated the importance of hard effort and the strength of persistence. Future generations would be motivated to work hard and get past any challenges by these lessons, which would reverberate throughout the kingdom. Following the three ministers' punishment, the kingdom's populace had gained important insight. They had learned from the penalty that success required perseverance, hard effort, and diligence. The core message was the same, even though each minister had experienced a different outcome. The first minister had successfully escaped punishment because he had carefully considered his plans and prepared himself. The second minister, who had only ever trusted on good fortune, had endured a great deal of suffering. The third minister also paid the ultimate price because he was unable to withstand the punishment's challenges. The message was evident: perseverance, preparation, and hard work are necessary for success. While luck may have an impact, it should never be the only factor considered. The kingdom's populace had come to realize that nothing worthwhile was simple to obtain. They had witnessed the importance of diligent labor, meticulous planning, and readiness. They had witnessed firsthand how crucial it was to gauge success by the caliber of the work put in, not by how simple it was to achieve. The three ministers' punishment permanently altered the kingdom. The teachings they had acquired would be passed down from generation to generation and had become an essential element of the kingdom's culture. The lesson that had been taught ultimately had more significance than the outcomes that befell the three ministers. The knowledge that everything is possible if you put in the necessary effort, make thoughtful plans, and endure hardships. The punishment of the three ministers had not only imparted to the people of the kingdom the values of perseverance, hard labor, and diligence but also the repercussions of negligence and laziness. The second minister had not planned or prepared for the punishment, instead, he had just depended on chance. He had therefore endured a considerable deal of suffering and adversity before failing in his mission. This proved to be a crucial teaching for the kingdom's populace. They came to understand that without effort, they would never accomplish their goals or hit any significant life milestones. The lesson was that while hard work and preparation would lead to success, carelessness and laziness would lead to failure. For the people of the kingdom, who had frequently taken their resources and privileges for granted and overlooked the significance of working hard to maintain them, this was especially important. The people learned that hard work was necessary to secure their futures and accomplish their goals through the punishment of the three ministers. They must not take anything for granted and must be prepared to work hard to maintain their way of life. In the end, the three ministers' instruction covered the perils of carelessness and complacency in addition to the value of diligence. The kingdom's citizens discovered that in order to succeed, they needed to take the initiative and always strive to better their lives and selves.